it's quite inspiring when I reflect on the time thinking about music education, because obviously John Painter was a foundational figure for music education at York, and through the 70s and 80s his work was really seminal for the UK national curriculum and the development of opportunity for so many people, and that belief in uniting composing, listening, performing was a real kind of like three-pronged process which has filtered through the York degree course, and it's still a very practical programme. And I think all of our research and all of our programmes have been driven with this feeling of wanting to empower practice, wanting to help people gain access to music, wanting to create opportunities for more people, and to inform those opportunities with really good pedagogy that's grounded in research. So it's brilliant that all of these things are continuing to happen, and it feels like John's legacy is very much living on in people here and people that contributed to our book. So I'd just like to say thank you to everybody, because we have wonderful colleagues and wonderful community in music education here. So thank you all. Now I shall move on to the panel. We have a fantastic group of people here today. It's brilliant that you could all make it. I'm so pleased. So I shall introduce you very briefly one by one. Perhaps you would like to say something more about yourselves, in which case just grab the microphone, or maybe we should pass it round. What do you think? Shall we just introduce ourselves? One, let's go for it.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Really excited to be here. My name is Cairney. I'm the director of the Institute of Mental Health Research here at the University of York, and I'm a professor of sleep and mental health in the Department of Psychology. Really interested to get into a number of topics today around music education, human flourishing, and I've been really impressed and inspired by everything we've heard so far in just a short amount of time that's passed, and it's really made a big impression on me in terms of the thematic directions and future plans for the Mental Health Institute. So I look forward to working with many people in the room over the coming years.
Hi everyone, I'm Joanne. I am the Partnerships Manager at York Music Hub. In case you're not sure what we actually do, we are funded by the Department of Education to make sure that we provide high quality music education for every single child in York. There are 64 schools in York, and every single one of those schools, a strong music departments. So that is what I'm doing now. My background is actually as over 20 years, here comes my age, over 20 years of a classroom music teacher, secondary music teacher trained, happened to work in an all-through school, which is very unusual, all-through school over in East London, again, very different to York, while working in an all-through school, obviously delivering the music curriculum, but then taught in the primary. And can I just say, as a music teacher, teaching in the primary school, teaching music, I found that was one of my hardest things I've had to do. It was a massive learning curve, and I take my hat off to anybody who teaches music in primary, who do amazing work. Within those 20-something years, I was deputy head of the secondary school and in charge of curriculum. Sadly, I went through the time of when EVAC became a thing, and I hated every minute of putting GCSE options together and knowing that the arts were really pushed back because of EVAC, but glad that hopefully now we can move on from that. And years and years of teaching instrumental. I'm actually an arborist by trade, but I do have a gorgeous little hobby now, and I'm a taiko player, taiko drawing, and I perform all over the country. That's taken over my oboe playing now. So yes, that's me, as a nutshell.
My name's Simon. I am the director of Converge, which some of you may know is a arts education project based at York St John University. It's a collaboration between the university and TUVE, which is the local NHS mental health trust. And we provide arts education, including a lot of music, for local adults recovering from mental illness. Making use of the campus as a place to be, but also encouraging people to engage with the arts as something really meaningful that can sustain recovery for them. And recovery is really challenging. It takes a long time, it has ups and downs, and being invested in music, for example, is one way in which people can really hang on to a thread of recovery. So my interests are very much in kind of the intersection between mental health and being a musician and having an identity as a musician. My background before Converge was in music therapy, so I feel like I've seen the kind of medical side of mental health care to a very large extent, and now finding the kind of more community-based way of offering people music education as a trajectory in life.
Wow. Fantastic. It's a privilege to sit on this panel. I'm Pam Burnard. I'm a professor of Creativities. Thank you so much for pluralising arts and educations, because there's so many. I'm at the University of Cambridge. I'm in the middle of my third career. My first was in the creative industries. My second was working in education sectors, in schools, very different planet, and now in HE, which is again a very different planet. And I know many people in this room, and I know Liz very well because we co-edited 2 books. She led co-editing on one and I led co-editing on the other. And it was such a privilege to work with Liz, one of the most esteemed professionals I know, and 2 of the co-directors, of course, with Pete and with Carolyn, we've researched together. And it's a privilege to come up from Cambridge to celebrate the launch of a new centre. And centres are being launched all over the world. There's one I've just come from in Norway called Creativities, which is a centre for music and technology. And they too have a strand on musicians' health and well-being, which is absolutely central. And I want to do 2 things in this little introduction because I may not get a chance later on. And one is to give to Liz and the centre an orchid, because this celebrates sustainability, aesthetics, just beauty. Every orchid is unique, and it will establish, again, I think, the well-being and sustainability. It's only tiny, but it will last. If anybody knows how, they're very, very, very hardy, and they speak. So for you and your centre, I share this as a vision of where you're going with this beautiful merger of human flourishing and music education. And I want to give you a recent book which it's called Eruptive Research, and I can see you're already doing eruptive research, which changes the landscape. And don't we need it, in schools for children? But in this book, there is a person writing about health, education, and the measurement of well-being, and she's also a musician. So I think you've really hit on this sort of zeitgeist, the music education, the well-being of musicians, the well-being of the audience that's out there, the well-being of children, parents, communities. They are interconnected. In this book, there's also a beautiful chapter about soil music. I'm not selling this book, I'm giving it to, I hope it's the first book that the centre will have on its virtual. I'll send you an e-one as well, because I think it represents where, a sort of celebration of where you're going to take it. A book only goes so far. You're already got these projects that are policy changing, that are research informed and connected to, from the ground up, to changing education, not just education, but communities. I am so pleased to be here. Congratulations to you all.
I think the image of the orchid is a really lovely segue into how I work, actually, because when I first started doing workshops with deaf children and young people in institutions, the transformative power of music. The kind of idea that I give to everyone is when you plant a flower and it doesn't grow, you don't look at the flower, you look at the environment, you look at the soil, the temperature, the water, the sunlight, and all those kind of things. But once you change the landscape, the flower can grow. I think that was a pretty smooth transition. So I'm Sean, and I'm as I have severe for power hearing loss. I started playing the trumpet when I was 7 years old, and just to echo what everyone said on the panel, I think I've been really inspired by the things that we've already seen today. Photo. But I think one of the main things that my parents noticed when I started from the lessons was my speech really began to develop. And when you are deaf, you are facing failure quite a lot in everyday life, really. And when you meet another deaf person, as a deaf person yourself, there's something called a shared oppression, which is where it's a hearing world. Not everything is accessible to deaf people. And so, through the beauty of music and the connectivity and the shared goal and working together and bringing people together, I think there are lots of bridges that can be built, that have been built and will be built through the launch of this fantastic enterprise. And I'm really excited to see what we're all going to bring. I think we've all got so much to bring to the table when we make music together. Deaf culture is beautiful, it's diverse, it's rich, it's steeped in history, it's steeped in identity, it's steeped in deaf children and young people, even today being withdrawn from music lessons, so that they can go and have extra English maths, which is very important. But the idea of being able to express yourself and develop your own identity as a musician, as a deaf musician, is really unique and special and important. And what you can bring as a deaf person to any musical endeavour can really inform the trajectory of beauty and flourishing, which can be shared with everyone that experiences it. So I lead workshops with deaf children and young people. I'm a qualified teacher of the deaf, trained in Leeds, actually. Manston isn't one of my schools, but I'll be sure to pop in when I'm older to get an idea of the world project that was being outlined by Rachel before. I'm a presenter, I'm a consultant, and this summer I'm interpreting my first prop, which I'm really excited about, working with Emily Glennie at the Royal Albert Hall. So lots of strings to my bow, but I don't think that just now is the time for me to wax lyrical about it. I'll just post on Facebook for each other. Thank you. Oh, I'm a double player.
Thank you all, that's lovely. There's already a huge range of very, very inspiring cross connections, and I also want to recognise that we've got a lot of cross connections with different groups from our local and wider community that are all here. So thank you all for organisations and the other people that have come from different institutions, because that is really important part of this network, is making these contacts with everybody, and also that recognising the people online. So thank you everyone who's joining us online. Can the online people hear us all okay? Great, okay. And hopefully there are comments and things coming into the chat. If there are, please just keep them coming and they'll be relayed to us so we can unpick them. So we were going to have 3 strands of focus in this discussion. So the first one we're going to be looking at things that are positive highlights of recent work in the areas of music education and human flourishing. And then we're going to consider some of the current challenges in this area. They might be local ones, national ones, or global ones. And then we were going to move on to how the panel sees the role and the functioning of the centre in supporting research and practice that could address some of these challenges, building on positives wherever possible. So if that's still okay, I think we might have to kind of truncate some of the things that we were going to say to fit into the time that we've got left. So if we'd like to sort of focus on some of the positives to begin with, Pam's already highlighted some of them, and thank you for the lovely gifts. That was very, very good and thoughtful. Shall we start just by going around, or would there be a different way? Would someone like to particularly jump in first here?
Start with
Yeah,
reflection.
thank you.
Yeah. I was really struck earlier with the presentations focusing on two key points or two key themes immediately stood out to me in terms of the directions of the centre. And one being clearly on the use of music for well-being and human flourishing and its ability to support people's mental health and well-being. So the focus on young people and the importance of human flourishing in young people, given that these are the people that are going to be our future leaders, and we need to be protecting the health of those individuals. And I think there's an important intersection there in terms of mental health. The 75% of mental health conditions now emerge before the age of 18. Anxiety disorder is the most common mental health disorder across the entire world, and that the peak age of onset is around 6 or 7 years old. And there are two particular peaks, but the earliest ones are around 6 or 7 years old. So there's a real importance and necessity for we are taking multifaceted approaches to protecting the mental health of young people. And I think that music and music education and creativity are clearly extremely important pathways towards that. And what I'm trying to do in the Mental Health Institute is ensure that we're developing thematic areas that can speak to mental health facing work across the entire university, across the 3 faculties. So two of the thematic areas are effective care and intervention and mental health across the lifespan. And I'm hoping that with those thematic areas alongside these focus points in the centre here, that we're able to work together to protect young people's mental health using music education as a clearly really important pathway to do that. So that was some key reflections from the floor, and also just really love talking about Willow. Certainly have some memories of this from my younger days.
Okay. I'm going to start with an email that I received today from one of my primary school teachers, quite a small primary school in the city centre of York. The music lead there is in her own time. She's a singer. She loves singing. She emailed me today to say, Joanne, I'm so excited. I need to let you know this. I'm so excited. She's been teaching for about 10 years, and she's always had a school choir. She loves the school choir. They come to our choral festival every year. They perform the minstrel, and done lots and lots of things. But she was really excited. That first time ever, the boys have taken over the number of girls in their school choir, and she was just so excited about that, and she needed to let us know. And I just think that in itself is an amazing thing, because we don't normally have that in schools. So that was an email today. I want to talk about York music as a whole. We all know that people look at York and think, oh, we're middle class, music's really popular, it'll be fine, everybody can afford instrumental lessons. No, that we all know who live in York, we know that that's not true. But we are bucking the trend. Definitely, we are bucking the trend. We have got 99 students taking A-level music or A-level music technology. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
We started at the top. We've got right there. I mean, that is fantastic. The numbers are increasing. The GCSE numbers are increasing. Every single secondary school in York has music GCSE. That's not the case everywhere else. Absolutely not. When I talk about you think white middle class, actually, those numbers are happening in our low deprivation areas of York as well. We're very lucky. We do get funding from the Department of Education, but actually it's not very much. But with that funding, we do ensure that, we've got 250 children within York, children or students within York, are having free instrumental lessons. And that is in those 4 key areas mainly. We've done some research where those bursaries are going, and they are in those key areas, and we are so important. So there's lots and lots of positives that's happening in York for music education, but nationally, I think I mentioned earlier about the change in EBAC. EBAC is huge, and as a music teacher, I am so pleased that's now changed. And that's the thing that we need to focus on. We need to focus on these positives coming, Department of Education, and giving us lots and lots, tiny little tidbits that actually things are going to get better. we're just in the funding. So that's a couple of positives from me, so I'll just keep that.
It's amazing that York is bucking each other.
We are,
It's amazing.
absolutely, it's really good.
There are so many positive stories in terms of people who have access to music education and go with it somewhere we know not where. And I hear that a lot from people at Converge, and I was reminded of it by that final quote that we had this morning, earlier on, about from I think it was an 11-year-old who said that music means I can be who I want to be and how I want to be. And I thought, yeah, that is actually exactly how lots of people in Converge talk about what music is for them. It makes kind of a good life more possible. And I think there's a positive development in society generally that people do recognise there are reasons for having music education which are not to do with producing composers, producers, performers, etc. Those are really important. We need those. But there's many more reasons for people doing music at school than that. And I think the fact that participatory music making is now much more prominent at school than it was when I was at school. I remember doing O-level music, that's how old I am. And we didn't have to play at all as part of it. I mean, it was incredible, really. Most of us did, but music education wasn't set up that way. And now I see what my own children have been through, and I think actually music education has really come a long way. And whether or not teachers are thinking about it, they are promoting human flourishing through doing it. So I think those are positive.
Thank you. I mean, this centre has the potential to look at how health, inclusion and societal perspectives, pretty broken at the moment, can be meaningfully integrated into music education and the other way around. What I see is creative industries that is making £40 billion a year employment in this country, and yet we're seeing so many institutions, because York sounds like you're on another planet. I want to move. This is amazing. And you want to really celebrate that and connect with this centre to really have the light shine on York internationally, nationally and regionally. But we're seeing institutions shutting their arts and humanities courses down. We're seeing schools not teaching A-level because there's not enough students, because the curriculum has just, because of the EBAC you're speaking about, has essentially eroded the opportunity to do music. And then there's also the business that young people are able to do music themselves. So we're seeing I see, and it's written about, a crisis in music education that this centre can really address and shine lights inward into York, but outward beyond, regionally, nationally and internationally. Just finished a Nuffield study, which was funded, looking at chances and choices into creative careers. Big data over 25 years, looking at the subjects young people take, the electives in secondary schools, the electives they take. Think of the electives that kids are taking, your children are taking. You as a parent are encouraging them to take certain pathways. Then the choices they make in terms of the institutions they go to, very often the sort of cultural capital that goes with the higher education, when FE is often offering amazing portfolio kind of career future making, an issue going on there, then thinking, where do kids go for employment? And we know that in this country, it's 30% of new grads are unemployed for the first year. I know that sounds like the glass is half empty, and that's unusual for an Australian living in the UK to speak like that, isn't it? But I think there's glimmers of hope, and this centre could really be leading the way along in collaboration with other centres. So I'm thinking, you've got Rosie Bird Perkins, who could still be online. I saw her join before. with well-being and health being promoted in the Royal College of Music. I just saw this amazing woman that's been employed at the Royal, wait, I've got this, she is at the Royal Albert Hall, just been employed as a, for public awareness of the meeting of science and arts. And she's looking at mental and physical health at an individual level, a societal health level, and well-being more broadly. And her name, I'll send you all this stuff, is her photo is here. Just came out yesterday, of making an appointment of someone at Royal, the Royal Albert Hall to be working with well-being, with audiences, of course, but look at the surrounding Royal College of Arts, Royal College of Music. Well, we also need to have this connecting to further education institutions, not always those high capital kind of places. And I can't talk as I work at Cambridge University, but I'm there because I kick butt and want to engage in more inclusive things. So one other suggestion, and I'll pass you my notes because I didn't get the brief that said, what are you going to ask? So I'm making this up as I go. But all these notes that I've got contribute to the first answer. And that is, you could join with the Creativities Centre. I'm on the organising board, the committee there, and I'll make a recommendation where they have, and they know that there's a, what's the country I'm talking about? I'm talking about, what's it called? Norway, thank you. Jet lag. Norway, that's Homer. Norway and UK have a partnership for funding. What if you were to partner with the Creativities Centre, who has similar strands to you? Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think I want to talk about Lexi. Actually, I think she's a real success story. So one of the great things about York is the natural sense of creative music, particularly cherry. Individual, real driving force for what we do in terms of what we do for the deaf children and young people in the city of York. Lexi is adopted from really sad and abusive background, but she came to her adopted parents who were brilliant, and they brought her along. She has severe to profound hearing loss, the same as me. When she takes her hearing aid down, she can't hear her own voice, but she could feel the vibrations on the corners. And so we took her down and we set her with the I Can Play workshops that we do with the NCM. She came to those, and she's one of the diehards. She's there every time that we do it, and she just brings. We talk about the gift that you bring when you do anything with music, and she brings her whole self to the workshops that we have. And because there were quite a few of the children and young people that took a real interest in brass, no idea why. But they really took to it, and so we set up I Can Play with Grassroots, which is a part of the Shepherd's Group organisation where they played. And they started coming along. We did deaf awareness training for the people that we each of the bands in the organisation. And Lexi, a complete starter at that point, again, was a diehard. She was there every Monday evening. She still goes. And I think it was fairly recently she got grade 1 with distinction. For a deaf child to go into an exam and to be able to have to listen. And the thing is, with hearing aids, cochlear implants, bars, any sort of hearing assisting technology, they're built for speech. They're not built for music, really. Even some of them have a music setting, which is garbage. But that's for another conference. So Lexi really took to it, and that was a real success. And so much so that we got nominated for the RPS Inspiration Award, but some old orchestra in Scotland got it. And they were really lovely as well, which made it worse. But that was one success story. I think music kind of gives you the opportunity to lead. You know, if you're a principal trumpet in an orchestra or the leader of the orchestra, or even, you know, you kind of like the emphasis when you bring a chamber orchestra in, leadership is evident, not only in yourself, but when you're working with other people. And one of the things that I'm looking to do is to get deaf children who have BSL, British Sign Language, as their first language. And I won the conducting prize when I was at the University of Salford on the brass band course with David King and Roy Newsom. And I took my hearing aids out because there was just so much feedback going into them. And I won the conducting prize just because of the choreography, I think, just because of the ebb and flow of phrases and things like that. And so, wouldn't it be great if we could get deaf children who have British Sign Language as their first language, teach them the basics and maybe a bit more in conducting and get them in front of a band or orchestra and just see what. Because you have to bring your gift. You bring your experiences of your life, how you see the world. And deaf children are not just hearing children with broken ears. The way they see the world, the way they learn language, the way that they appreciate and enjoy music, the way that they interact with other people, the way they interact with deaf people, with hearing people, with music, is completely different. So I'm looking forward to bringing that to the fore, hopefully bringing it into the mainstream way of thinking as well. And then the other thing that I wanted to just briefly mention was that there is a real thirst I'm seeing in music services across the country that are asking me to go and deliver deaf awareness training in respect of musicianship to their peripatetic music teachers. And I think that's a really encouraging sign, because not only do you teach them about what you can bring to help deaf children learn music, but the strategies, the interventions that you would employ with a deaf child, you can employ with a hearing child as well. The idea of one voice at a time, the idea of listening critically. Like I said before, when I started playing the trumpet, my speech improved, and that was because I was encouraged. So, and my teachers were phenomenal. And the best thing that my teacher ever said to me was, just sing. You just need to put your own stamp on it. You need to sing this phrase. Just make it short, make it yours. And what I say to teachers when they're working with deaf children and young people, the best thing that you can give them is time and space. Yeah, two things which are in scarce supply these days, I'm sure. But if you can make children feel that it's okay to make mistakes and we can explore and we can work together, and it's conversational, dialogic teaching, I think we find more things in music that unite us than divide us. So I think that's enough for me. Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Thank you all. That's been very interesting. I've been thinking, reflecting while you've been speaking about these themes, and I think where you just landed into the idea of this dialogue is like absolutely crucial, because we're not operating in isolation, any of us. So it's like, how does what we do relate to everything else? And sometimes that's incredibly difficult to acknowledge, and also incredibly difficult to then think, where do I go with that? Because it will probably make contact in so many different places. And I think that's where our passion and our belief in what we're doing is absolutely fundamental, because if there isn't that passion, it's very, very hard to sustain that drive, to be motivated, to want to communicate, and to have that commitment. But actually, fundamentally, we want the same thing, don't we? We want opportunities, we want things to be progressing, we want a better experience for all children, we want music to be there. And I think actually, this theme of advocacy that's coming out is a really, really interesting one. For me, that's probably the one that is not really spoken about or researched about enough in music education, because advocacy is something that we're all given as a opportunity, or maybe we think of it as a duty to talk about what we do. And certain people have had to fight much, much harder for advocacy in some of the discipline areas. I'm trying to look at Naomi here. For musicians' health and wellness, for example, which has historically been sort of added on, but trying to embed that into curriculum, trying to embed it into healthy practice, trying to get it into the ecology of building design and things like that, our absolute environment. it should be there. So I think how we advocate for what we're doing is probably the next thing that we want to be researching, really, because if we want to have the impact on the policymakers and things like that, we need to understand how we're talking about it, to whom, and how else we can develop it and do it better. So that's my 10 cents worth at this point. I'm very mindful of time ticking on, so I think maybe we just skip the challenges part of this conversation because we've addressed challenges already, and we go on to thinking about how the centre can connect and enable. So I think we'll start from the other end, if that's okay. Just put you on the spot.
I think the best way is access, really. So kind of like, I think, if there were opportunities to get the word out in terms of the centre and what it's anything, and kind of like working with people myself, maybe to make that accessible. To the deaf community in York and beyond, actually. I think it would be really good to kind of see where our ambitions cross as well. I keep coming back to this idea of bringing the gift. I think we need to also be empowering deaf leaders, actually. I think I can play the workshops that I do, to see the potential of the children and the people that come. And I just kind of think to myself, if you're given the opportunity to think about leadership and think about the way in which you can lead others, and it's the very, there's someone out there who's just like you, who may be a bit younger than you, who needs to meet you. This idea of being a role model and being someone who can transform a child's life, I think that's at the very essence of what we're trying to do here. And why not this centre? Why can't this centre be the absolute pinnacle of that? So let's work together to get the word out there in an accessible format by people who really care and believe in the power of what we're trying to do. That'll be my thing.
Thank you. A reading by Alexandra Kurtz-Wetzel in her Rethinking Music Education and Social Change. And she has sections and big areas, big pages on human flourishing. And she says this on page 3, that sociological perspectives certainly offer opportunities for better understanding music education's transformative power. And I think that's at the centre of one of the driving issues of this centre, is to better understand music education's transformative power, to see what's going on in York, because those stats are amazing in terms of the choices young people are making, to understand what's going on in York. Other regions would benefit. She goes on to say that they likewise call for critically reflecting what education is for. And then she goes into lots and lots of definitions of human flourishing. And one of which is human flourishing. Any conceptions of human flourishing must leave room for individual, social, and historical contingencies, even while recognising that such flourishing may have some less contingent aspects and prerequisites. So you're looking at the relationality of human flourishing and music education, and you've got a lot of work to do, and to connect with other centres that are also have these strands working out, is to look into York and look out to get that sense of inspiring leadership that you have the capacity to do. Congratulations on the choice of that direction.
It's great to hear the sociological perspective, and I know you've got Tia Denora on your advisory panel. She was my PhD supervisor a long time ago, and I think her perspectives on the kind of cultural toolkits that people can develop through learning music, for example, might be something really interesting to engage with. I think there are 3 things I want to say very quickly. The first is a plea that music education is not just for schools. It's really important that it's in schools, but there should be lifelong access to opportunities for music education, particularly for those who stand to benefit from them particularly. The second one is, and I don't think this is going to happen, but I think there's always a danger when people start let's say, oh, we're going to focus on flourishing slash something like that, that you fall into the hole of doing everything in a kind of a deterministic way, that if we teach this way, then this result happens. And it comes back to what you were just saying, that actually when you teach someone, you give them tools and opportunities and you encourage them to go somewhere you might not be able to predict. So trying to measure flourishing is difficult and can lead down blind alleys, but I'm encouraged by the use of the word flourishing rather than well-being or health or something like that, that I trust you guys to do a brilliant job with that. And also I think there are lots of people doing good practical work in York, obviously the Music Hub, there's lots of charities, the NCM has been mentioned, 2 universities where music is valued, lots of good teaching going on in schools as well. I mean, there's a huge resource to draw on and to research, I guess, as well. And one more thing is that all the stuff I did a long time ago about social capital and music, participatory music making, suggests that all these organisations say we're going to grow social capital by getting people to do music. It doesn't really work if the focus is on growing social capital. The focus has to be on doing music, on people getting into music and actually becoming a musician. And I think that cultivation of creative identity through loving what you do and experiencing as high quality music making opportunities should be something that is at the centre of it. So led by the music.
Just before I answer your question, there's 2 things I want to comment on. I'm really pleased about Lexi. She's one of our nursery children now, so I'm really pleased about that. It's really good to hear that she's going grade 1. And the second thing is something like you just said as well about partnership. I think York is doing really well, absolutely, but it's not to do with York Music Hub. It's about the partnerships that we've created. We've mentioned the National Centre. I'm going to mention you again. I think because you do so much for us. The work that you're doing with one of our primary schools is just incredible. An organisation, just to let you know, National Centre has taken one of our primary schools in one of our lowest deprivation areas and just nurture those children and making sure that every single one of those children in all the year groups experience live music. They constantly walk over to the National Centre, they constantly walk back, they have workshops, things like that is so important. They really are. And the work that you've here has helped us. Peter, I'm going to wave to you because you've just amazing things you've done with our secondary schools. And they're the type of things that would keep our students engaged and keep them going with the GCSEs, their into the A levels. He's been doing lots of work on DJing, by the way, for our teachers. But to answer your question, and again, to really go on what you said is, advocacy is really important. Where music is really successful in schools is where the music leads are obviously pushing it, absolutely. But actually it's the head teachers, and it's the head teachers knowing how important music is into their curriculum. The weaker schools is when the head teachers think all of this is music and all of this is maths and English to deal with. It's not. It's so important. That's where we need to go. We need to really push the head teachers, making sure they know. Follow on from that, we need to make sure that parents understand the importance of it, making sure that universities are celebrated with their GCS, with their degrees, offers, and those students wanting to go on to do something with a degree, and the businesses understanding the importance of a music degree. So it's at all levels. It's that advocacy which is really important. So thank you for all your help and your support. Thank you.
Thank you. So an important part of Liz's question earlier was how do we make significant change? How do we impact policy and really change the world? And we've got some really important points about accessibility, about partnership, and about advocacy. I think another important part of the picture here is transdisciplinarity and working together to understand the way that people with different backgrounds, different expertise, different research disciplines go about their work and how they how they express the work that they do and how they communicate it. And that's really important because you can know that something works extremely well and you can feel really passionate about something, but you need other expertise at the table to be able to communicate that, the ability of something and how well something works to a much wider audience. So, for example, if you have music education informed interventions around mental health, we need to be having conversations with psychologists about understanding the mechanisms that they work, what's going on in the brain over time within children that may support the mechanisms of action with those interventions. By getting that understanding, we can refine them. We can build bigger groups to promote advocacy and growth of these. Similarly, having people on board who work in health economics, so you can understand the economic value of these interventions. Doing something quite simple that can inform human flourishing can often be a hell of a lot more productive and also more cost effective than other mental health interventions. So I just think it's an important thing that the centre can be doing is considering how can it work with other centres and other institutes across the university to really capture those shared areas of potential for growth, and in doing so can potentially have a better chance of really making those big changes both nationally and globally.
Thank you all for such multiple perspectives. I'm very mindful of time again, but I'd just like to see if we can have a round of applause for both our panelists and then possibly some questions. So do we have any questions in the room or online? Yeah, Karen.
I have a perspective of a long-time instrumental teacher. Simon, you were talking about making.
Sorry,
Oh,
sorry, thank you.
sorry,
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, thank you, everybody. Simon, I was particularly interested in your comment about making this led by music from a perspective of a long-time instrumental teacher in schools. We are often campaigning because music's good for other things, and that really seems to be not always terribly helpful. So, I don't know if you want to say more about that, but I just wanted to echo that. I think that sounds like a very important message. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think in schools, it's often when staff see their children they know thriving in instrumental lessons or whatever else it is that they do musically, that they say, oh yes, I see the point. It's maybe not making their maths better, but actually they're thriving as a person and they're growing up and they're discovering what it is that's meaningful to them. You know, when you see streams of children walking down the road with violin cases and tubas and stuff, and they're going out of their way to do this, it's not because it's improving their maths, it's because they love it, and it constructs structures in life for them to flourish over time. So yeah, I totally agree. It's very frustrating, though, the kind of the other side of instrumental.
Thanks for the question. I mean, instrumental music teaching and learning. What do you think of? Violins, trumpets, you think of Western art music. We know that we should be saying musics, because there are many musics and there's many ways to make music other than Western art music. And so I think you can be doing a lot of eruptive research where you're looking at music made not in a Western art music setting and context, music made on found instruments, music made on ethnic instruments, music made with nature. If you look at composers, look at Liz Haddon, who's a composer, professor at Huddersfield and in Sydney. She's just recently written a piece of music where in Lucerne, they have a big river going through Lucerne. And one of the ensemble players was the river. So we're seeing artists, people in real world practices incorporating non-human elements into the music being made. Amanda Bailey, who is a musicologist, is working in schools, really like Rachel, but this time she's working with rivers and waterways, measuring them, sounding them. Again, instrumental music, it is mute sounding, making with music and sound. So I think we've got to broaden the remit and not necessarily be producing, musicians who think they're going on to become professional musicians, but rather being players of some sort. And I'm thinking here, community musicians who don't go in with their own skill set at the front, but draw from the community, whatever the sound making, the traditions and the genres that they are celebrating, and that's the starting point. So I think let's widen our brief.
Thank you. Just really briefly, when you say that you want to persuade people that music is good for all the things as well, that's probably one of the takeaways that I'll certainly take from this afternoon. I'll never forget the workshop that I was asked to do by Senko, and the Senko email music. Can you come do a workshop for the hearing impaired children, which isn't really a term, and I'm not impaired, I'm deaf, it was a different bit, again, for another conference. But, and she asked me what would I do with the children and young people, so I said, well, I've got a big brass instruments found, we'll play some beautiful games, so kind of gave her a list of the stuff that we're going to do. And then she replied, can you tell me what the games will be? Because clearly the brass instruments will be ineffective with their children. So I thought, right. So this was a mainstream primary school where there was a base for 12 children with hearing loss, varying degrees of hearing loss. And I wanted the hearing children, the mainstream, typically developing children, to come to the workshop as well. But I had half an hour with the deaf children beforehand, and I told them how to play brass, and they nailed it. It was brilliant, it was beautiful. And then I got the hearing children to come in, and I got the deaf children to teach the hearing children how to play. And it was remarkable. And usually, and this is quite a usual thing, at playtime, lunchtime, after school, before school, wherever kids are in class, the deaf children will kind of stick to themselves, and the hearing children will really engage with them. And it's a communication thing, you don't really sign language. But what we found in that session was that hearing children and deaf children were making a real effort to go to bridges and to communicate. And there was vibration there was all those things forming embouchures. And it was amazing. And so the deaf children made a point of saying, we're really making an effort to reach out to you here. We can't learn to listen, but you can learn to sign. And so with gesture and a real combination of eye contact and everything, we got the transformative power of music, as you said, it's not just music. So, no.
Yeah. Do we have any questions from the online people?
Yeah, we've got some comments.
Oh.
Yes, sure. We've got
Would you like
seconds? Yes, please. Yes.
Sure.
Thank you very much. Yes. Rosie says, congratulations everyone, thank you for this great discussion. She's just had to jump out now, but she's looking forward to the future collaborations. Alicia says, congratulations on the initiative. I'd be delighted to learn more in depth about the initiatives that are planned to be carried out. Thank you very much for the invitation. Please feel free to count me for any collaborations from Spain. And Alice says, congratulations on the launch of this exciting new centre, and thank you for the inspiring discussion. I'm grateful to be part of this network. I look forward to any future collaborations that may occur. Warm wishes for you all.
Nice, lovely, thank you.
Thanks very much. I think we need to probably wrap up now, so I'm going to hand back to Pete, Pamela and Burnard.
Apologies, Liz, for making you run around with the microphone. I'm trying to get in there, you were too quick for me.
I think we had a script, but we've moved on. So thank you to all the panelists. That was a really rich and wonderful discussion. And yes, we've got everyone. Thank you so much. We have one more. So we're still